The massacre, the hospital ship floated in silence, a white vessel among the dark sea of stars. Inside its halls, children laughed, doctors worked, and families whispered soft words of comfort. It was meant to be a sanctuary, a place where even war could not enter. But the galaxy had never been kind to humans. From the window of a small cabin, a boy pressed his hand against the glass. He watched stars drift by. His mother sat on the bed, weak from sickness. His father whispered a promise that once they reached Earth, everything would be fine. The boy believed him. He believed that no one would ever hurt a ship carrying the sick and wounded. But then the alarms began. Red lights flashed, walls shook, voices screamed through the halls. The boy stumbled, clutching his mother's hand. His father's face turned pale. He knew what it meant. Raiders. Ruthless aliens who saw no honor in mercy. The hospital ship was unarmed. Its shields thin, it was prey, nothing more. The first blast tore open a corridor. Air rushed out. People vanished into the void. The boy's ears rang with the sound of shattering metal. His father dragged him toward the emergency pods. But the path was already filled with fire and smoke. A second strike ripped through the deck, sending bodies flying. The boy screamed as he saw doctors trying to shield patients. Only to be burned alive in the firestorm, he could not move. He could only stare, his small hand clutching his mother's cold fingers. The pod doors closed before they could reach it. His father pushed him forward, shouting for him to run. But there was nowhere left to run. The ship was breaking apart. In that moment, the boy saw his father fall. Crushed beneath debris, he saw his mother's body slump. Her eyes already empty, the boy's voice broke into the chaos, calling for them, but no answer came. Only fire, smoke, and silence. Somehow, by cruel chance, he was thrown into a broken cargo hold that sealed itself shut as the ship split apart. He drifted alone in the wreckage, his small body trembling in the dark. The boy had nothing left but grief. He had nothing left but anger. Hours later, a human patrol ship found the debris. They rescued him. One survivor out of thousands. The officers whispered when they looked at him, their eyes filled with pity. But the boy did not cry anymore. Something inside him had changed. The tears had burned away, replaced by a cold fire. A question repeated in his mind. Why did no one protect us? Why were we so weak? Why did the galaxy allow this? In the weeks that followed, he stayed silent. People tried to comfort him, but he stared at the stars with a gaze too sharp for a child. He watched the ships dock, the engines roar, the machines hum. His young mind memorized every sound, every light as if storing it deep within his soul. When other children played, he tore apart scraps of old machines. He pressed wires together, sparks flying. His hands blackened with soot, but he did not stop. He was searching for something that could make sure no one would ever suffer the way he had suffered. The officers called him gifted. But it was more than that. It was obsession. His grief had become fuel. His anger had become focus one day. As he looked into the endless black sky, he whispered to himself, "I will change this galaxy. I will never let them hurt us again." The massacre had taken everything from him, but it had left behind a mind sharper than steel and a fire that would one day reshape the stars. And so began the story of a broken child, who would rise from ashes not as a victim, but as a genius the galaxy could never ignore. The spark of genius, the boy grew, but the memory of fire and blood never left him. Each night he dreamed of the hospital ship breaking apart, of his mother's hand slipping from his, of his father's face vanishing in smoke. He would wake up with his fists clenched, his heart racing, and whisper the same promise he made to himself in the wreckage. Never again. He was taken to Earth, where other orphans lived under government care. Many children found new families, but not him. He pushed people away. His mind never rested while others laughed. He took apart broken drones while others played. He rewired scraps into machines that hummed and sparked. He had no teacher, but his hunger to learn was stronger than any lesson. At 14, he built a small engine out of trash parts, one that produced thrust far beyond what engineers believed possible from scrap. The officials who saw it called it luck, but he knew it was more. It was vision. His teachers noticed his eyes never wandered. He absorbed every detail, every formula, every design. He asked questions no one else dared to ask. Why must engines burn fuel this way? Why must shields bend to energy this way? Why can't weapons move faster than thought? Most adults brushed him aside. saying that's impossible, but he hated that word. Impossible was the same word that doomed his parents on a helpless ship. Years passed, and his mind sharpened like a blade. He earned a place in the great academy where humans studied beside alien scholars, towering insectoids, scaled philosophers, and machine-minded species filled the halls. Many looked down at humans as simple, emotional, reckless. They did not expect greatness. The boy, now almost a man, listened quietly, but deep inside, rage burned. He remembered how aliens had turned their eyes away when human ships were attacked, how they mocked human weakness. In the academy halls, he heard whispers, "Humans are fragile. Their science crude?" He smiled at them, but in his mind, he sharpened his ideas. In the laboratories, he worked alone, night stretching into dawn, his hands stained with grease. His eyes bloodshot, but burning with life, he tested designs that bent the rules of physics. He failed often. Machines exploded, circuits melted, but every failure gave birth to a new question, a new answer. Others laughed, calling him obsessed. But the whispers began to spread. The human boy builds things that should not work. He created a shield coil no larger than his hand that resisted impacts meant for starships. He forged a propulsion design that leapt across testing chambers faster than alien eyes could track. Professors studied his devices in silence, unsure if they were witnessing madness or brilliance. One evening, while the halls were quiet, he sat alone before a shattered prototype, sparks flickering weakly, his hands trembling with exhaustion. But his eyes glowed. He whispered, "If I can shape the smallest thing, I can shape the stars." His heart did not beat with pride, but with grief, with rage, with the memory of screams echoing through steel corridors. His mind was not only creating, it was avenging. Every wire he placed, every circuit he burned, every spark that leapt into his skin was a step toward a future where no one could massacre humans again. The Academy soon tried to restrain him. Professors warned, "You cannot tamper with these forces. You will tear space apart." He ignored them. His ears only heard the voices of the dying, he thought. Better to tear space apart than to let it happen again. And then, one night, he succeeded in the dark of his workshop. A small sphere floated above his desk, a device no larger than a fruit. It pulsed with silent light, bending gravity around it like ripples in water. It was a seed of something the galaxy had never seen, not a weapon, not yet, but a doorway. As he stared at it, his breath caught. The air shimmered, and he knew this was the beginning. The galaxy still saw humans as weak, as prey. But soon they would learn that from the ashes of weakness rises the fire of genius. And one human, broken by loss, was ready to reshape everything. The unseen weapon, the sphere, hovered in silence, no sound, no vibration. Yet the air around it bent as if the universe itself leaned toward its core. The young man stared at it, sweat dripping down his face, his hands trembling not with fear but with awe. He had done what every professor said was impossible. He had bent gravity itself. For weeks he kept it hidden, tucked away in his workshop under layers of broken machinery. No one could know, not yet. He understood the danger. If the Academy learned too soon, they would take it from him, call it unsafe, bury it in locked vaults, and the galaxy would remain the same cruel place. But he had no intention of stopping. Each night he refined the design, shaping coils, feeding power, adjusting calculations that no book had ever written. His mind saw paths others could not, lines of possibility stretching into infinity. Failures came again, collapsed chambers, shattered tools. But he pressed on, driven not by ambition but by the memory of screams echoing inside a burning ship. Soon, whispers began. The human does not sleep. He works with forces that kill worlds. What is he building? Alien scholars sneered, calling him reckless, but some watched with unease, sensing that behind his silence lay something that could shake empires. And then came the night of the accident. The device pulsed too strong. A wave rippled through the lab. Glass cracked, metal bent. A professor rushed in and froze as the floor seemed to tilt, gravity twisting against its own laws. When the pulse faded, the professor whispered in terror, "This is not science, this is a weapon. They tried to confiscate it." But he was faster. He fled into the outer docks. Hiding the prototype within a crate of spare engines, the Academy called for his arrest, accusing him of breaking codes, of endangering lives. Yet the humans who heard of it whispered another word, genius. Now hunted, He escaped into the lower decks of the city orbitals, where smugglers and engineers traded secrets. Here he was not judged by race or rules, only by what he could build, and he built with fire. He forged new versions of the sphere, each one stronger, smaller, more controlled, until he could make a coin float silently in midair for hours, until he could bend a beam of light into a curve, until he could feel space itself respond to his will. Still, he told no one the truth of his purpose. Not yet, but one evening a group of human officers found him. Men and women who had lost families in raids. They looked into his tired eyes and said, "We've heard of your work. The galaxy ignores us, but you might give us a chance." For the first time since the massacre, he did not feel alone. He showed them a demonstration. A metal plate hovering, twisting, flipping without a touch. The officers stared in silence, and one whispered, "This is not a shield. Not an engine, this is something else." He nodded, his voice steady. "This is the beginning of a weapon no one can defend against." His words carried no pride, only certainty. The officers swore to protect him, to hide his work from alien eyes. In secret hangars deep within Earth's orbit, he built piece by piece, shaping machines that could fold space like paper, weapons that could silence fleets before a shot was fired. But the galaxy was not blind. Rumors spread. Alien councils debated in hushed tones. "The humans are building something. They were always reckless, but this feels different." Many laughed, dismissing it as human exaggeration, yet others felt a chill, remembering how one small world had already resisted empires with nothing but will. And then, one night, his prototype ship took flight. A small craft, sleek and unfinished, powered not by fuel but by his unseen engine. In the void, it vanished from scanners, reappeared behind them, slipped through beams of light as if reality itself bent to his command. When he returned, his eyes burned with certainty. "It works," he whispered, "and they have no idea what's coming." In that moment, he was no longer just a survivor, no longer just a student. He was an architect of terror, a genius forged in fire, carrying within his hands the power to change the fate of humanity. And the galaxy, still blind and arrogant, did not yet understand. The unseen weapon was ready, and soon it would be unleashed. The test of fire war came like thunder, sudden and merciless on the outer colonies. Alien fleets descended without warning, burning human settlements, destroying stations, dragging survivors away as trophies. Humanity's ships fought back, but they were outnumbered, outgunned. The councils of the galaxy looked on in silence, whispering that humans would soon be broken. In the command halls of Earth, voices rose in anger and fear. "We cannot hold them. Their fleets are too many. We need a miracle." The young genius stood among them, his face pale but his eyes hard as steel. In his hands he held the design no one else believed possible. The unseen weapon now forged into a warship engine. He spoke in a calm voice. "Give me one ship, and I will give you victory." The admirals stared at him, some with doubt, some with desperate hope. "You're asking us to gamble the last of our fleet on an untested device," one said. The young man did not flinch. "I'm not asking," he replied. "I'm telling you it works." And so, with nothing left to lose, they gave him a vessel, a single cruiser already marked for destruction, stripped and dying. In the hangars, he and his team worked day and night, installing coils, circuits, and the sphere that bent gravity itself. Soldiers watched in silence, whispering prayers. Some doubted, others believed, but all knew this was their only chance. The day of the test came. The alien fleet had entered human space, hundreds of ships cutting through the void like blades, their commanders sneering. "Humans will kneel," the cruiser lifted from its dock, its engines humming with a power no scanner could read. The young man sat in the control chamber, hands trembling over the console, officers beside him watching with wide eyes. "Are you sure this will work?" one asked. He whispered back. "It has to." The fleet of aliens advanced, their weapons glowing, their voices mocking across open channels. "Human ship, surrender or burn." But the cruiser did not surrender. It vanished in an instant. Scanners lost it. Alien commanders shouted in confusion. "Where did it go? Find it!" The ship reappeared behind them, silent as a shadow, its weapons fired, tearing into their engines before they could turn. The enemy screamed as 3 ships exploded at once. Panic spread through the alien fleet. How did they move? How did they hide? Again, the cruiser vanished, flickering across the battlefield like a ghost, striking and vanishing. Striking and vanishing, no lock, no counter. Nothing could catch it. The humans on the command deck of Earth listened in stunned silence as reports poured in. Alien ships destroyed, more fleeing. They cannot see us. They cannot stop us. The young man's face stayed calm, his heart racing but his voice cold. Good. Let them run, but the aliens did not simply flee. Their pride was wounded, they regrouped, gathering into a massive wall of fire, thousands of cannons aiming at once. The human officers froze. If they fire together, we're finished. But the genius only smiled faintly. No, now they give us everything at once. His hands flew over the controls. The ship pulsed with light, gravity bending in waves. And as the alien wall of fire unleashed, the cruiser slipped through, every beam curving away. Space itself bending like water around a stone. The enemy fire never touched them. The human cruiser emerged untouched on the other side. Weapons blazing, tearing open the alien flagship. The commander's last words filled the channel. This cannot be, this cannot be. Then silence. The battle was over. One ship against hundreds, and humanity had won. On Earth, crowds wept, soldiers cheered. Leaders bowed their heads in disbelief. We are not prey anymore, they whispered. And in the shadows of the command hall, the young man stood alone. He had proven his weapon, but he felt no joy. Only the heavy weight of memory, his parents' faces in the flames. Still, the galaxy had felt it. A shift. A tremor. A single human ship had shattered an empire's fleet. Alien councils gathered in fear, their voices trembling. If humans can build this, what else waits in their hands? And deep inside, the young genius whispered to himself, this is only the beginning. The test of fire had ended, and the stars themselves now waited to be reshaped. Reshaping the stars, the galaxy did not sleep after the battle. News spread faster than light. One human ship had destroyed an entire alien fleet. Whispers filled the halls of power. Humans have something new. They hide a weapon beyond our reach. Some laughed in denial, but many trembled because fear had already taken root. On Earth, the people rose from despair for the first time in centuries. They stood tall, no longer prey, no longer weak. They looked up at the stars not with dread, but with fire in their eyes. The admirals gathered, leaders bowed their heads, and all turned to the young man who had given them hope. He did not wear medals, he did not seek praise. His face remained cold, but his eyes burned. This is only the beginning, he told them. We must build more, we must reshape the galaxy itself, or they will come again. And so, under his guidance, shipyards blazed with new life, hidden stations filled with engineers and soldiers. Every design he touched changed the rules of war. Engines that moved faster than thought, shields that bent reality, weapons that pierced through matter like light through glass. Each invention was born not from pride, but from grief, from the memory of fire consuming a hospital ship. Other alien empires began to plot. Some sought to strike before humans grew stronger. Others whispered of alliances, but no one dared move quickly. For the unseen weapon haunted their thoughts. Then came the Second War. A coalition of alien empires launched fleets larger than the first. Their leaders swore to erase humanity before it became unstoppable. Billions of tons of steel and fire advanced on Earth, and humanity answered. The first human armada took flight. A swarm of ships powered by the young genius's design. They moved like shadows across the void, appearing where no scanners could see, striking with fury, disappearing into nothingness. The galaxy watched in horror as entire fleets fell in hours, commanders screaming that they fought ghosts. That space itself betrayed them in the heart of it all. The young man stood on the flagship, his hands steady on the console, his voice calm. No mercy, he ordered. They showed us none. The war ended not with peace talks, but with silence. Alien empires broken, their ships scattered, their pride shattered. The councils that once mocked humanity now bowed their heads. Some out of respect, most out of fear. Earth rose from the ashes. No longer a small world on the edge of the galaxy, but a force none could challenge. And the boy who had once been a trembling child in a burning ship now stood as the architect of this new age. But victory did not bring him peace. He walked the halls of the flagship at night, hearing in his mind the cries of the hospital ship, his mother's hand slipping from his father's face lost in fire. He had reshaped the stars, but he could never reshape the past. Yet perhaps that was his destiny, to carry the grief of one massacre and turn it into power that protected billions, to forge a shield of fire around humanity so that no child would ever again feel what he had felt. The galaxy whispered his name in fear and awe. The human genius, the architect of shadows, the one who reshaped the stars. But to himself, he was still only the boy who had survived, and as he stood before the endless black sky, stars glittering like cold fire, he whispered the words that began his journey. Never again, and the stars seemed to listen. For now, they belonged to humanity, and no empire would ever forget it.